Good afternoon. Let's talk about our week 2 in our fashion design CAD class. Remember to get your attendance points, submit a 150-word summary of this lecture no later than Tuesday night. That's 10 points. And take part in the forum discussion no later than Friday for your post, Saturday for a response to another peer's post. That forum is worth 25 points to your attendance grade, and it can be an entire grade level if you don't do these things and earn zeros on them. So make sure you get these assignments done at the bare minimum. Now remember that our focus for this class will be Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop. Last week we concentrated on Illustrator, and this week we will have one more unit to learn about in Illustrator, and then we'll move on to Photoshop. I'll talk about some of the other things that are due in this class. Let's just remember that here are the topics covered this week. You'll be doing the fashion pose in Adobe Illustrator. How can you translate a hand-drawn drawing into Adobe Illustrator? It's much like tracing. It's fun, it's easy, add some more dimensions and things that you can't do by hand. Then we'll get into Adobe Photoshop. You'll get an introduction to it, understand its layout on the artboard. It's similar to Illustrator, yet things are different. You're going to start learning about functions and effects and filters and all these things that you can do in Adobe Photoshop. The key thing with Adobe Photoshop is making your selections. It was very easy in Illustrator just to click on the object that you wanted to make a change to. In Adobe Photoshop, you must capture the pixel that you want to make a change to. And since everything is in little tiny pixels, you need to figure out how to collect many of them in your selection. So you'll learn about the different tools to make that easy. And then adjustments and filters will be our first focus in Photoshop. These are tongue twisters, kind of hard to work with. But the assignments that you have due this week will kind of lead you through some of this stuff. Your typical lecture summary, discussion forum, and a quiz. Usually you have all of these. Sometimes I don't have a quiz. This class you do. Make sure you take care of all three of these things at the bare minimum. The inspiration for this week will actually be a collection of images on Pinterest. And these will collect to support that line drawings and the idea that you had in your sketched drawings from your inspiration sketches due last week. You're kind of pulling it all together and bringing the images together. I know many times we start off with our images and mood board to begin with, but since that's done in Photoshop and that's the second thing I teach you, we're kind of doing it a little bit after the fact. But get those images together. Label the board CAD fashion design inspiration images, something like that, so it's not put on an other board that you have on Pinterest. I'll never be able to find what's new and what's not. Make sure it's very clear which class this is for. And then your fashion pose in Illustrator will be due this week. Your identify selection and drawing tools in Photoshop. And then you'll be using a picture of yourself as a self-portrait in Photoshop. You will have you'll have one image, make 4 different copies, learn how to make extra space on your workboard to put those copies. You're going to perform adjustments, functions, filters, effects, different things. And I want to be able to clearly see that you've done something. This is where you can go have fun with this project. It does not mean, it's not intended to try and make a perfect photograph, in which Photoshop is usually typically used so that you would almost think nothing was done to the photograph. In this case, I want the most extreme, crazy, wild fun you can have. This is so that I know you're trying out the different filters and effects and adjustments in Photoshop. Now, it doesn't seem like a whole lot this week. It's because many of the things that were done as exercises last week, as well as some of these this week, come next week, and you should look forward into week 3 to see which finished pieces you need to have done. I'm going to show you some examples here in a minute, but you need to make sure that you spend some of this week working on those finished items that you'll turn in as a portfolio finished group. All right, so remember that I have tutorials. They are collected under each unit topic in the little green book that you can see right here, okay? Right in there, any topic will have a green book and then give you tutorials that will show you how you can finish out your exercises per each unit. Then what you learn in that exercise, you're going to be able to, or hopefully, or need to go back to these tutorials to see how do I change a fill color, how do I change a stroke or a stroke size or an attribute, how do I rotate, how do I mirror and flip, different things like that. All right, here's some examples of some self-portraits. You can use the same image. Well, I want you to use the same image. You can change the color to it. You can make it black and white. You can make it posterized, which is kind of an example up here. And then she liquefied things and swirled it out. Here she did a rendering of a sketching effect of maybe charcoal or chalk or something. And here was a filter effect of a texture applied on here. This is a duotone of black and white. And then in this one over here, we have some, again, some posterizing. I can tell that things were done with adjusting the colors and shadows and depth. Over here in this one, this was changed to some kind of artistic filter, and then a gradient was applied in there too. Whoop, where'd my, there it is. A gradient that is kind of a sunburst and a slow fade. Shapes were created and filled, so that's something else that you can try. Over here, some text was also added to it. And over here, this is, I can see some lines drawn, so you can actually paint with the paintbrush or pen or pencil and draw around the figure, kind of like tracing it. Use your different layers. Photoshop is very picky about how you utilize the layers and control that. It does not allow you to move something from one layer to another layer as easily as you could do it in Illustrator. That's why I teach Illustrator first, because I think learning how to manage your layers is a lot more forgiving in that program. And so that hopefully you get that understanding of layers and selections and things, so that when you move on to Photoshop, you understand the layers and you can focus on all the new stuff happening. All right, things to create in this class. This is outside of your exercises. Your exercises will prove to me that yes, you watched the tutorials, and yes, you have attempted each of the steps that were shown to you. That way you get practice in finding where those tools are and what you do and how you do it. Now then, these creations are your ideas where you are using this computer as a tool. Think of it this way. It's no different than picking up a pencil or a mechanical pencil or a marker. It's just learning how to use it. Now, granted, these are very complicated media things, but that's really all it is. And if you break it down and kind of concentrate on each one, hopefully you won't feel too overwhelmed. All right, so the line sheet, it'll have 6 technical line drawings. You can have more, but at minimum you must have 6. And a top and a bottom will each count as 1 technical line drawing. So if you had 3 tops, 2 skirts, and a shorts or a pant, that's 6 different items, and I'll accept that. Or you could have 6 different dresses. Either way. Your tech pack design or spec sheets. These will be design sheet forms, and it's done with Microsoft Word. You are just copying your line drawing and pasting it in to the field for the sketch on that form. It's very simple, and then make sure you go into the other fields and fill in your information as far as, make up your company name and contact information, things like that. But make sure that it stays consistent through all the things in this collection, this season, this group. If you need to on that form, you can click on any of the lines to readjust the form to keep it all on one page. All right, and you need to do, I think, 4 of those. A fashion pose with one of your garments on the figure in Illustrator. So you'll take a hand-drawn one and take a picture of it. Basically, you're tracing over it in Illustrator and recreating it using the different ways of filling and coloring in Illustrator. You will also create a textile design in Illustrator. Make sure this is a print that you would think about using in your collection. It all needs to be cohesive. All of these need to look like they're all part of the same design, line, group, concept, all of that. Then your mood board in Photoshop will help support that. Even though it's one of the latter ones you actually do, it is the mood you're going to set, and it would usually be the first thing you would show somebody about your line. Make them understand what you're about to show them, how it feels, and the attitude it has. Now then, the last one you do will be your fashion pose with a garment in Photoshop. This is much like Illustrator, but you color them in different ways so that this way you learn how to use the different tools. Some times one program will be better for what your outcome is than the other. In this case, you are just getting familiar with those, and I want you to show that you've been able to do it in both. Here on the next slide are going to be some examples of these finished items. All right, up in the upper left, that is a mood board. You can get the feeling of some kind of warm Brazilian summery kind of night, easy breezy summer. There you go. You also have text. The key thing in this one that other than just adding your images, which you want to make selections, I don't want everything just square cutouts. Make selections, make fades on them, make some things more opaque or translucent where you can see through them. But you will be adding some text, and you will be adding color swatches. So remember that these colors would need to reflect back to colors that you are using in Illustrator. All right, for your group, they need to connect to each other. Now then, here are some examples of the 4 line sheets. These are the same garments that she used on her technical line sheet of a grouping of her garments. She also made the background interesting and continued to keep the same name here. And then here is her sketch. She actually is using the same dress, but colored it once in red, and this one is done in Illustrator, and she colored it in blue over here in Photoshop. And the hair color is a little bit different. Now, this example was not from this grouping, but I do want to see your pattern design. 3 different color groupings, so you can recolor it 3 different ways with the colors you're using for your group. But see how it, aside from that textile print, how everything else has a connection and a feeling together. All right, so that's what you're trying to achieve. Remember, this week you're not heavy loaded on a lot of exercises because I want you to continue working on the things you learned in week 1 about doing these line drawings and your pattern print, and get those ready so that you'll have them for your finished pieces to turn in week 3. Okay, here's some examples of Pinterest inspiration images. Collecting a board of the images that you can use for your color story mood board. So the Pinterest images help you start thinking about the mood. Next week you'll actually learn how to put that board together, like this one up here in the corner. You'll do that in week 3. Week 2, you're collecting those images. All right. Now, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. I know this course, this one, is pretty new and rough. If you have not logged on and got Adobe Creative Cloud and been able to get Illustrator and Photoshop, I need to know right away. We need to figure out how we can get you going on this so you can successfully complete this program. And there's my office and cell numbers. I think each of you have it. I'm out of time. Have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.